Hello everyone, welcome to Jolly Molly TV. Today we're going to do another fun block in Kimberbell's Quilting Through the Seasons ladder quilt project. Today's block we're going to work on this pretty picture frame right here. This one's going to be fun to make. So let's go ahead and head over into our embroidery machine and let's get started stitching. I also want to give a huge shout out. Again, thank you so much to My Girlfriend's Quilt Shop for sponsoring me and sending me the CD, the embellishments, and the fabric kit in order so that I can show you how to make this project. If you still need some of these supplies for this project, please visit My Girlfriend's Quilt Shop using the link down below and help me give them a big thanks for supporting me and enabling me to make this video series for you. Huge thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, My Girlfriend's Quilt Shop. Okay, we're at the machine. I checked my bobbin down below and I have a good amount of thread still in there. We can start this block with that. I think I can probably get at least through the quilting design with that amount of bobbin thread. So now let's go to the screen cam and let's load the design. Okay, so I'm going to click embroidery. Oh, I have a Brother Dream machine in case you have something similar you can follow along. I'm going to go to my flash drive because I keep all my designs on the flash drive. Quilting Through the Seasons. And we're going to go to the quilting design first. And for this wall gallery block number 4, I am looking for the stars design 4x6. So let's click on stars. And I'm looking for a 4x6, which is right here. There we go. And we've used this design before. Click set. We don't have to do anything. And now I'm going to add the quilting design on top. Now if your machine can't add, don't worry. You'll stitch out the quilting design first, clear the memory on the machine, and load the main quilt design second, and then stitch that out. But because I can add, it'll make things just a little bit easier. So I'm going to click add. I'm going to go to my flash drive. I'm going to go to Quilting Through the Seasons and the main quilt. And now I am looking for this frame right here. That's the one I want. Yep, that's perfect. I'm going to click set. It brings the design in perfectly centered, and that's what we want with this block. So all I have to do is click embroidery. I also want to give another thank you to another sponsor in this video, Kimberbell, for providing me with the quilting designs to be able to make this project absolutely amazing using their block by block quilting designs. Thank you so much, Kimberbell. And if you're interested in getting these quilting designs, please use the link in the description below and it'll take you right to it, and you can choose the bundle of the quilting designs, or you can also just get individual designs if you like it all florals or all sayings, which I believe they call time. You can choose which designs you want to put in your project. So please check out the link down below for kimberbell.com. Ready to go. Okay, let's go back to the hoop cam. Okay, so now I need you to get your plastic pouch system or bag system that is labeled number 10 and wall gallery 4. Okay, that's the fabrics we're going to need for this block. So then we're going to pull out the fabrics that are in that pouch. And I'm going to set them aside. This is going to be for the frame. And we've got that right there. And then this is going to be the background. So because this is the background, I'm going to choose to do a matching thread for this part. And this is more an ivory. So I think that one right here versus the taupe. The taupe that we've used before is a little darker. So I'm going to not use that one on this one, but I think this ivory will be a very nice match with that background fabric. So put that fabric aside and go ahead and put a matching thread to your fabric in the top of your machine. And then the first stitch we're going to do is the placement line for the batting. All right. So once you get your machine loaded, 1 and 2, thread that needle. Make sure there's no loops. This one I got loops. There we go. And put the foot down and let's stitch out the placement line for the batting. Here we go. Okay, now I need you to get a batting that you've pre-cut that is measured 5 by 7. Okay, 5 by 7. And that's what we're going to use for this block. Okay, so now we're going to lay that down and make sure you cover that placement line so you have a little bit of excess batting on all sides. And all we got to do now is keep your fingers away from the moving needle and let's tack down this batting. Here we go. So now I want you to take the hoop off the machine and go to a table, and I want you to trim away all of this excess batting around the outside edge of those tack down stitches. Okay, so the batting's trimmed up nicely. So I'm going to leave the cream thread up in the top, and I'm going to put the foot down and stitch out the placement line for the fabric. Okay, so now we can lay the fabric down. Make sure that you've got it covering the placement line for sure on each side. And this fabric is plenty big, so we can actually do the batting method where I just kind of feel for the batting and I make sure that I have plenty on all sides. I can move this up a little bit. More than plenty. Okay, so let's go ahead and put the foot down. Leave the same color thread up on top and let's tack down the fabric. Here we go. Okay, yes, I definitely like the color of that thread on top of here. So I'm going to use that same color thread for my quilting. This is a 4-minute in real life stitch out. So choose the color thread you like your quilting to be and put that color thread up on top. Just FYI, the majority of this quilting is going to be hidden by the frame that we're going to be stitching out later. So I'm just going to allow this to be the same color so that it blends into the fabric and doesn't pop or conflict with the frame that we're going to do. So choose your color thread and let's put the foot down and let's stitch out the quilting. I love that quilting design. That's so cool. All right, so now we're going to start working on the embroidered frame. And the first thing we're going to do is do a placement line for the fabric. This fabric that we're going to be using in this next step is pretty much an ivory, a little bit different color, but it's pretty much the same. So I'm going to leave the ivory thread up on top to stitch out this placement line. All right, so foot down and let's go. Okay, so now we're going to put that fabric down, and if you have the kit, it's just hatched little design fabric. But I want to make sure that I cover that placement line. We are good. Make sure your hatch fabric is also straight, and we're going to use the same thread up on top, the ivory, to tack this down. All right, you got this. Let's put the foot down and tack down the fabric. Okay, so now we're going to take the hoop off the machine gently, and I want you to take this to a table, and I want you to trim away the excess fabric from around the outside of that tack down line. Okay, so that fabric's trimmed up. We're going to stitch the placement line for the next part of the frame. We can use the same color thread. It's like a neutral color. So leave that thread you have up on top in your machine, and let's stitch out the placement line for the frame. Okay, so now we're going to lay down the yellow fabric. It's kind of like a light, not quite a lemon yellow, and make sure that we've covered all of that placement line on each side. There we go, and we're good. Leave the neutral thread up on the top of your machine, because all this thread is going to be hidden as well when it does the intense stitching around the frame. So we're good. So go ahead and put your foot down, and let's tack down the frame fabric. Okay, so now we're going to take the hoop off the machine, and we're going to go over to the table, and we're going to trim away first the excess fabric from around the outside. But then we also have to very carefully do a little snip, and we're going to trim the inside of this frame, but we're only looking to take away the yellow fabric. That fabric we tacked down earlier, the hatch, we want to leave that intact. So we're going to very gently only remove the yellow fabric from inside the frame, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, we did it, all right? So now we're going to leave the neutral thread up on top, and we're going to stitch out the placement line for the next piece of fabric, which is for the flowers. Now the next step is easy. We're going to take that light ivory fabric, if you have the kit, that's the color we're looking for, and we're just going to place that right on top of those stitch lines, which is kind of easy because the piece of fabric fits the frame. So we're good. So now let's put the foot down, and let's tack down the fabric for these flowers. Okay, now we're going to take the hoop off the machine. We're going to go over to the table and we're going to trim away the excess fabric from around the outside of all of these flowers. Okay, so now we're back at the machine and I'm going to put a new bobbin in because that is not quite enough to get through the stitch out of the outline of the frame. So I'm going to put a brand new bobbin in. I'll use that other bobbin up later on something like placement stitches and stuff like that. So I'm going to put the hoop back on. Now we're ready to stitch out the outline of the flower, and I think it would look pretty to be in that same color thread, just a very subtle flower. So I'm going to leave my ivory thread up above. You choose the color thread you would like up above, and let's put the foot down and let's stitch out the outline of the flower. This is a 5-minute in real life stitch out. Here we go. All right, very nice. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a gold thread in my machine because I want my frame to be gold, just like Kimberbell did with theirs. So choose the color thread of your choice, something that would match and kind of blend in maybe with the yellow fabric that we used as the background, and put that color thread in the top of your machine. I run mine on the back because it's a big spool, and I keep it away from that, I call it the flywheel on the right that moves when the machine stitches, because you don't want the thread to get tangled around that. So I put my thread toward the back of the machine so that won't happen. Make sure you don't have a loop. All right, so we're going to put the foot down. We're going to stitch out the frame. This is a 13-minute in real life stitch out. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Here we go. I just love a pretty satin stitch. It just makes it look so finished and so polished. Love it. Okay, so I'm going to use gold thread, which is already in the top of my machine, for the next stitch as well, because it's going to do some pretty filigree type accents in the frame. So let's put the foot down and let's stitch that out. 5 minutes in real life. Here we go. Isn't that pretty? All right, so I'm going to leave gold thread still up on top for this next stitch as well. We're going to stitch some dots, perhaps center of the flower, I believe. Here we go. Foot down and let's stitch them out. Very pretty. Okay, now we get to change the thread out. Now I'm going to put in a lighter green for my leaves. I tend to go for the little bit more brighter colors than the muted, so you need to pick out which green you would like. Just make it lighter, because later on we're going to do a darker, and you want to have something that looks good together, but is a definite light versus dark color green thread for the leaf contrast. Okay, so I'm going to put this green up on top. You do the same in your machine, and this is only a 1 minute stitch out, so this will be real quick, and we'll start to put some leaves on this frame. All right, here, whoops, do you see what we have? We have a loop. Get the loop out. All right, here we go. Let's stitch this out. Very cool. This is really starting to come together, huh? All right, so now we're going to do flowers. It's showing blue, but in my house, I always have pink flowers year round, whether it's inside or out. So I have to make my flowers pink. So you have to make the flowers on your block the color you want them to be. Put that color thread up in the top of your machine, and we'll stitch this out. Make it your own. Pick your favorite color flowers. That's all you got to do. All right? So this is a 2 minute in real life stitch out. Here we go. Pretty. Okay, so now put the pink aside. Now we're going to put in that darker green that I mentioned earlier to make a contrast with the lighter green leaves. So choose a darker green for your block and load your machine with that thread. And then we're going to stitch out the darker leaves, which is about a 4 minute in real life stitch out. Okay, foot down, and here we go. nice. We are almost done. We have one stitch left to do, which looks like it's some brown, I want to say berries, but perhaps they're like miniature pine cones or something. And so I think I'm going to go with the brown that they recommend. So put a brown thread or whatever thread you'd like for your little brown berries. Put that thread up on top and we'll stitch this out. This is just a 1-minute stitch out. And this is the last stitch out on this block. Get that loop out. There we go. All right, let's put the foot down and stitch these out. That is really pretty. Very cool. All right, so let's take this hoop off the machine. Let's take it over to the table and I'll show you how to finish this block up. All right, that's one cute block. Okay, so let's go ahead and take the block out of the hoop. And we'll set this aside for right now. And now we have a block that we're going to need to measure up to 4.5 inches by 6.5 inches. And if you're looking at the outer stitch line, that's what we're going to use to measure this up. Now the outer stitch lines on mine are not 100% straight, so we're going to square this block up on our own here, but just using those as guidelines. So yeah, from this one to this one is 4.5, and from this one to this one is 6.5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this ruler up with the outer edges of the stitch line, like as I said, mine is not 100% straight, and we're going to make that block straight on that side. Okay, so I'm going to trim that up, and so then I'm going to use my mat and we're going to go 6.5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.5, and we're going to strictly use the mat as my guideline, not the stitch lines, but just know that if you're in the area of the stitch line, you're right, okay? But because my stitch lines are not straight on this one, I'm totally going to use my mat to line this up. And don't move it like I just did. Okay, here we go. All right, good on that one. So this one's going to be 4.5. But I'm going to use my ruler line at the bottom of this block, and then I'm going to look at the top of the stitch line and the bottom because the middle curves in, and make sure that I am there and get rid of that. And then I'm going to come this way and measure 1, 2, 3, 4.5 using my mat and lining up the side and the bottom. So we are good to go. And that is how you square up your block. Isn't that pretty? Look at that. You did it. This is a really cute block. So I hope you had as much fun today making this block as I did. And I hope you stay tuned here on Jolly Molly TV for more fun and more blocks on this amazing project by Kimberbell called Quilting Through the Seasons. And until I see you next time, take care and happy stitching. Bye-bye.